Welcome in everyone to our newest rendition of our Doc Talk series here with Sports Management Worldwide. Thank you all for joining us today. Some housekeeping for everyone. Let me first spotlight myself. My name is Ike Worth, out here in Portland, Oregon. Really excited to have you all join us. We have Dr. Lynn Lashbrook with us today, Oscar Suarez, and Dan Evans, and I believe we'll be having a special guest, which I will let Dan introduce to us. Hopefully, he'll be able to join us here in a few minutes. But we're very excited to be welcoming in our special guest. As a side note, we were expecting to be able to run this Doc Talk in multiple languages today. However, due to some technical difficulties with the software that we were planning on using, unfortunately, we will not be able to be running the Doc Talk today in multiple languages. However, we do expect that service will be coming live here shortly. I would imagine sometime in 2025 that we'll be able to offer that to you all. As you all know, Dr. Lashbrook's big mantra among many is go global or go home, and we don't plan on going home anytime soon. So with that being said, I'm going to be turning it over to the man of the hour, the men of the hour for that matter. Just the final bit of housekeeping. Please make sure that you keep your microphones muted. We will have a chance to bring you guys up for questions when we get to that point. But for the sake of running this chat smoothly, make sure that you have your microphones muted. Cameras are on. That's totally fine. And we'll be getting to your guys' questions here shortly. So without further ado, Dr. Lashbrook, Oscar, Dan, let's bring you all on board, and you guys can take it from here.
Thank you, Nick. Great job. I know you're under a little duress, and I know Dan's under a little duress, and we're going to get through this through Zoom. But great job by you and Nick in the office setting this up. And as Ike said, we plan on doing multiple languages and multiple courses as we go global or go home. This is an exciting chat. It's a good time of year to talk about baseball as we get ready for our winter meetings. I want everybody to go down below in that chat room and put in where you're from and your day job. We will follow up and keep in touch with you. We've been in business for 30 years, started with one student and one course, and now we have over 30,000 graduates from 164 different countries. And we're really proud of what we do and offer you and our faculty, and it's really exciting time. I'm going to do a quick introduction here, though. I'm going to first go to Dan, a little under the weather, but Dan, give a short intro, if I may. Then I'll go to Oscar, and I'll let you introduce Xavier when he does come in. But we'll go to the questions or comments. I have a few questions. I want everybody to know you can raise that hand for questions. You can type in your question. But this is about you asking questions in the world of baseball. But Dan, let's go with your short bio, since we have a lot of new people in here today that have never really experienced the Sports Management Worldwide family. Dan, thanks for coming in.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm really sorry. I was just diagnosed with pneumonia about an hour ago, and I've got a fever, so I'm struggling. Longtime baseball executive, been in the game for more than 4 decades, former GM of the Dodgers, been teaching a class at Sports Management Worldwide for about 11 years. We've got over 450 graduates working throughout the game. I'm a real pioneer in technology in baseball. I was Moneyball 15 years before Moneyball was published. Very lucky, worked for 5 franchises, was an agent for a while, and very candidly, I've had a lot of fun relationships and a lot of fun moments in the game. So welcome to everybody.
Dan, thank you so much. Let's go to our good friend Oscar, who I might be a little healthier today. Oscar, come in with your intro.
Well, I'm doing well. I hate to see what's happening to Dan. I mean, he's an energetic guy. Now's the day to beat him up, guys. So let's ask him a lot of questions. He won't be able to talk after about 10 minutes. Dan, I hope you get well. And I got a little bit of a bottle of tequila and lime here. You can always have some. I'll send it over to you. But yeah, I've been in baseball for quite a long time. I think been certified since 1988. Have represented over, I would say, over 35, close to 40 major league players. A lot of them from Mexico. Some from the States, some from Dominican. I've had a lot of incursions into Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and a lot of fun. At times, I look at it and I look back at my career and I ask and I wonder to myself, maybe what I've been a glorified babysitter, but it's been a lot of fun and it's been great to see the guys, do well and get their careers going. And secondly, on the agent class, been teaching it for quite a while now. I have quite a lot of good students in the class, and guys and gals have gone into becoming agents, and also others that have gone into other, other parts of the world and facets in life in the baseball world, but they've done well for themselves too.
Yeah. Oscar, I want to ask you a couple of questions and give Dan a chance to breathe a little bit. We'll get back to him. But Oscar, let's where we are today in baseball, and the reason I wanted to do this global interaction with the success that baseball is having globally. Obviously, we can go to Japan and we see what Ohtani and the viewership in this World Series is one of the highest viewerships, at least in the last 10 years. But Oscar, here's my first question in the changing world. The number one major league player draft, the number one draft of the Cleveland Guardians was a guy at Oregon State in our backyard, and he's from Australia, Travis Bazana. Oscar, tell me your thoughts about the global talent discovery going on, not just in Latin America and Japan, but talk about baseball and the growth of it globally.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. I mean, you see the best player in the world comes from Japan. And I mean, he's a guy that fills up the stadium everywhere we go. The young man that you talk about from Oregon, that was the first round draft pick for the Cleveland Guardians. I saw him play here in the Pac-12 tournament here in my backyard in Scottsdale, Arizona, and you can see he's going to have a wonderful career. And what's happening, I think we have a lot of good American players, but in the States, you got a lot of the different alternatives. You got the NFL, you got the NBA, a lot of the, especially the black player, they want to get they want to get to the top right away. So the NBA and the NFL gives them that right away. In baseball, it's more of a grind. And baseball's become global because for a lot of kids, a lot of young men around the world, they look at it as a chance to get to the States and get out with their careers and make a living for themselves and for their families. So that's what's going on. It's becoming global. Baseball's gone global. I just hope that the game can keep up with a global side of it. We hope to God that Rob Manfred can do what he's got to do to keep it going.
One other follow-up, Oscar, on that, back to the college baseball, we've watched how it has grown, for example. But I want to ask you a question. As I look out here in baseball and the pitch clock and the growth of baseball, what's your comment? You've been in it a long time as an agent, and I want everybody to know we offer courses in the baseball agent world. We offer courses in scouting, with Dan, of course, and Hank Jones. We offer analytics with Ari Kaplan. But the opportunity in baseball, both vertically and horizontally, if I may, globally. Oscar, your comments about a time to work in baseball one way or another, what you try to do getting somebody in the ecosystem of baseball. What is your goal in your class?
Well, I think what I want to do with the guys and gals that come to my class is first find out what it is they want to do, because some of them are taking the course. They're coming from Dan's class, they're coming from Hank's class, from Ari's class, and they're just looking at the others. They look at it. What's the dark side all about? What's the agent side all about? And we give them an idea, but they learn about baseball from all different angles. But I tell the guys and gals that come to my class, with baseball, try to get in the industry, no matter where you start. I've seen, and Dan can probably attest to this. I've seen young men, young gals take jobs as a video coordinator for a team, and they follow a minor league team for the whole year just doing video work. They meet everybody that comes into their stadium. They meet everybody that comes to see their ball club, and before you know it, they're going up the ladder. You start as an intern, you start as a video person, you start in the ticket area. The main thing is to get in and then get going and let your personality and your knowledge take you.
Right. Dan, let's go back to you. Just a short question. You've been to Japan. You worked there many years, and let me know. Let me know if Xavier comes in, and we'll go to him. But Dan, your comments globally with this particular World Series and what's going on in Japan. You were there way back, and you've watched the growth of it. What's your comments on the future of the globalization of baseball?
Well, Lynn, I've been going to the Pacific Rim for 35 years. Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China. I signed 3 of the first 4 big league players from Taiwan. And what's going on right now with the Premier 12 is an indicator for everybody on this call that the game has changed completely. I mean, the 4 finalists, the American team is the worst of the 4. They're probably not going to get to the final. Venezuela, Taiwan beating the United States 8-2 earlier today, and Japan just pummeling people. So I think what we're seeing is the game catch up globally. I think the World Baseball Classic has a lot to do with it. When it first came out about 16 years ago, there were a lot of people who didn't like it. I still don't understand why, but the country's competition to get into the World Baseball Classic is is at an all-time high, and it's a real point of establishing yourself as an international power. There's a lot of money to be had. There's a lot of potential signings. So what you have is not just the the numbers that we saw in Japan for the World Series, but that's always going to be the case if there's a Japanese player. But what we're seeing is all over the world in streaming numbers. It's an extraordinary following now for Major League Baseball, and the game is exploding to Africa, to Europe.
Right.
It's always been big in the Pacific Rim, but now it's even bigger. And I think what we have in Ohtani is the best player in the world happens to not be a North American native. And I think it's great for the game because he's a multi-dimensional guy who is really, quite the antithesis of the old school baseball group saying Oscar, you can't pitch and hit. Well, Ohtani's saying not only can you do it, but you can excel at it. And you can be the most popular person in the world playing the game.
Dan, let me give you a break. I want you to think about the question I'm going to ask Oscar. Both of you will have an opinion on this. I just came back from Toronto. I talked to Commissioner Gary Bettman, the NHL. They're doing a four-nation tournament in the middle of the year. And the reason I bring this up, also, Ike wants me to remind you, please click the raise hand button. We go and give everybody a chance to ask questions. Click that raise hand button. In a few minutes, we're going to go to your questions. That's what this Doc Talk is all about. But Oscar, I'll go to you as Dan listens, and we'll give him a little breath here. We got the 2028 Olympics in LA. We know what the success of the Olympics were in France. I just came back from Munich, where the 72 Olympics were, and the historical tragedy there, if I may. But Oscar, I'm convinced that this World Cup soccer coming in 2 years and what Olympics are doing, and the NHL playing in the Olympics, and baseball has participated. But what's your comment participating now that baseball's back in the Olympics? What's your comment, even though we have our World Classic, if I may, what's your comments of baseball adjusting their season? And it may be controversial as I ask this question. What's your opinion? Would they actually change the schedule to accommodate the world, the Olympics in 2028, as some of the players would like to? I'm interested in your comments, Oscar.
Yeah, that's a great question because the old-time baseball person is going to say, well, you stop the season, you're going to kill my pitching, and they can't keep up, and I send them to the complex, and when they come, they're going to have to ramp up again. But when it comes down to it, Dan's previous comment with this Premier 12 thing, where the United States is getting, is probably the worst of the four teams that made the semifinals. But unfortunately, in fairness to the United States, they don't let the 40-man roster players play on those teams.
Right.
And even though other countries may not have 40-man roster players, they got great players that are not on 40-man rosters. So to me, they got an advantage. But players in the States, whether you hear Bryce Harper, you hear the big players in the States say, we want to go to the Olympics. We want to, I remember David Robertson, the great pitcher for many years. He said to me when I talked to him about it, he said, I'm not going to play this year. I'm not going to sign with a major league team until I get the Olympics out of the way, and I'll come back and sign. And I think it'd be good. I think baseball should stop and baseball should figure it out and put together their best USA team they can put together and go at it. And like you said, make it global or let's get the heck out of here. But it'd be a very wise move. The other thing I want to add when we talk about the WBC, but when I went to the Caribbean Series in Miami this year, and the final game between Venezuela and the Dominican Republic was Venezuela won. They drew close to 40,000 people. They drew more than the WBC game between Japan and the United States. So the game is out there. Believe me, it is out there.
Yeah, and I think, going back to hockey, I'm watching all the sports. We just came back from England, where the NFL for 20 years has been playing over there. It played in Germany last week. But for a moment, Oscar, I just think that not only the players, but the globalization, 8 billion people out there. And when you get that platform, particularly baseball, back in the Olympics. Dan, let's go to you with much shorter comment because we're trying to protect your health as Oscar and I drink tequila and keep the doc talk going.
Tequila. We don't want to kill him.
I don't. Dan, Your
I don't
comment,
remember
Dan.
tequila being part of the doctor's orders when I left the office about an hour ago.
Well,
Um,
I'll have to take you to my doctor's. Just come on over.
I love it. You know what, Lynn? I think, and I'm probably going to surprise some of the people on the call here, but
Yeah.
I think too often we think too much of ourselves at Major League Baseball,
Yeah.
and we think we've got it all figured out, and the game revolves around Major League Baseball. And I think we're entertainment. And for the game to grow globally, which it is exponentially right now, we really need to take a step back and think about our place as the leader of the game. 38% of the game is played by players who are not native United States people. And, you know, and there's over 20 countries represented in Major League Baseball alone right now. I think for us as a game, we need to stop being so full of ourselves and thinking that we can't stop our game because it's never been stopped before. I think that's old school thinking. And I think it's in the best interest of the sport for us to halt the game, to play the game with our best players, because I think the World Baseball Classic has been the best thing to happen to baseball in the last 50 years. I think it's been unbelievable. I've been to all the finals. I've been to, you know, games overseas. It's been unbelievable. And I think the only way, see, I don't even think the Olympics compare to the World Baseball Classic. I think the Olympics pale in comparison to the WBC. But I think what we have is we've got a platform, and we better start realizing that hockey, basketball do it. And us saying that we're, you know, we're too important to do something like that, I think that's foolish. It's short-sighted, and it's also pompous in nature. And I don't think it's in our best interest as a sport for us to have that attitude.
You know, Dan, I got to be honest with you. Starting with, as I said, one student born in Kansas City. I remember they called it the World Series when the Yankees and Dodgers for years, but nobody else was invited. Then Toronto, of course, is invited. But I think it's an exciting conversation. And I do think, going back to the pitch clock and some of the major changes that baseball has done that were unthinkable just a few years ago, I think there's momentum here in the players. And as they watch the other leagues and they watch what NBA is doing, and then you watch what the women's sports are doing, and then going back, it's just 8 billion people, and the new streaming and the Amazon and the, you know, the NFL, and then you watch soccer. People don't realize it. When I was in Toronto, the ministry up there was talking about, we're not prepared, North America, for this World Cup soccer in 2 years. And we had it before, but I myself was a victim to ignorance of not understanding what this game's all about. And if you look at soccer and that 1 billion people, and you look at the money and you look at the sports betting and everything that goes in the growth of the sport, I think it's inevitable. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch at the winter meetings. We're getting ready for the winter meetings, but that discussion, I'm going to bring it up, Dan, and in our winter meetings with different experts out there, as you will, and Oscar. But it's a fascinating discovery what we're talking about. I love it. Oscar, let's go back to you. And Dan, let me know if Xavier comes in. I know not everybody can make it tonight. And I really would like to take some questions as we try to answer your questions. How do you get in the game? And Dan, you always hear me say you have to have a ticket to the game to catch a foul ball. I've never seen such a growth in our baseball courses, what Oscar and John Boggs do and what you and Hank do, the access, and then the informational interviews. And so many students are now getting jobs in sports. And what Ari compliments, Ari will be in Dallas also. And by the way, it's not too late to sign up. We still have a few chairs left in baseball, and we'll also be at the Texas Rangers Stadium. But Oscar, let's go back to you in Major League Baseball this year. I thought it was an incredible year, and the races and the compelling, even watching a small market team like Kansas City do very well. But I go back to the Dodgers and the Yankees. It really turned out to be one of the greatest years for baseball and growing it globally. Your comments, Oscar, on this year's season?
Well, I think you know, it was a match made in heaven for all the TV and all the media people, because they got LA, they had LA and New York in the World Series, and even though it was more of a downer because LA really thrashed the Yankees on this one, but what's happening is like going back to Dan's comments, 30, whether the number is 38%, whatever it is, 38% of the players are no longer players that are born in the United States.
Yeah.
The WBC has really taken a hold of baseball.
Yeah.
The fans, I mean, I have a lot of players I've represented over the years from Mexico. The Mexican fan is really, really in tune as to what's going on. And it's not that they want to beat up on the United States people, but for them, it's a big, big thing when Mexico beats the U.S., for Canada, when the Canadians beat the Mexicans, when the Japanese, all these different people from all over the world coming together to play one game, and it brings nations together. It brings, it brings arguments. It brings fun times. It's like a gathering. It's like getting together at home on a Sunday and playing around the dominoes and having some tequila and some run on a Sunday afternoon and enjoying your family. That's what it comes down to. And baseball's brought a lot of us together. Now, what we need to do is, like what Dan is saying, is don't get too much of stuck on ourselves, and let's get open-minded, and let's make sure we open up all the borders and let everybody play this great game that we have right in front of us.
Oscar, your comment on the name, image, and likeness, which is a collegiate American domain, if I may. And I talked to Travis Bazana's father during the regionals at Oregon State, and there was no NIL money, and it's right now the visa restrictions, but there's political bipartisan pressure after the polarization and everything of the election of getting that visa restrictions lifted, which means that athletes all over the world could come to America, get a very good collegiate experience, but also get an education. Your thoughts on that impact of college athletics open where NIL? There's some very good baseball programs that do quite well financially. Your comments on that and the growth of recruiting baseball players around the world.
I think this whole thing with the NIL, I mean, somewhere along the line, there's going to have to have some kind of regulation.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I think it's a really great tool to have. I mean, at Oregon State, I watched your catcher from last year who was not drafted, and he ended up going to Miami because he got a tremendous amount of money from the NIL side. And I, to me, the game is all about the player. Whether you're a GM like Dan was, or an agent like myself, it's all about the player, and their dollars there to be spread out and to give to the players. Not because I'm an agent. I think that's what business should be.
Dan wants to chime in on this topic. Dan, I just want to take care of you, but I'm glad. I love your opinion on this. You and Oscar have been dynamic in our growth of our baseball. It's exciting. Your comments on that question, Dan?
Thank you, Lynn. I know it sounds like I'm going through puberty tonight, so I'm very sorry. For everybody on this call, there's a major change in amateur baseball going on. The NCAA changed their rules. Scholarships went from 11.7 to 35 in 25-26. And that is going to be a massive change on the baseball landscape at the collegiate level. They used to be able to spread their 11.7 among as many as 40 players, and now it's effectively 35 full scholarships instead of the 11.7. I think what we're going to see is the surge of college baseball will get even more, because instead of players having to pay to play, they will suddenly be on rides at mid-majors, at decent D1 schools, which right now has not been the case. I mean, try to imagine, and we talk about this in our class every 8 weeks.
Right.
Try to imagine fielding a competitive college baseball team using only 11.7 scholarships and distributing that among your pitchers, position players. It's almost impossible. And college coaches have been doing it. Staffs have been doing it. They show how extraordinary they are. But now what we have, Lynn, is with the alterations in the game and the changes in the scholarships, I think we're going to see the college game get better and better. And we'll have more educated players, which will really impact in one big way. And that's this.
Dan,
college programs can't hire you as a full-time staff member without a degree. So now if you get your ride, you get your scholarship, you are more apt to turn to a college job later, when today, without a scholarship, without education, you
Yeah.
cannot coach in the collegiate game.
Dan, you're so right. Being in the college system for years, and now, like in football, they have general managers of the football program. Robert has a question I'm going to read and have you and Oscar comment. He would like to hear comments on Baseball United organization and the recent tournament in Dubai of the Arab Classic. I've been through Dubai. I was fascinated with the country. Oscar, do you want to comment on what's going on in Dubai, if I may?
Yeah, I've got a good friend by the name of Eddie Diaz that's very involved with that, and he's recruited two or three of my players, and they've played, and I've asked my players how they felt about it. And like you said, wonderful country, great place to be. You just have to be very careful because there's a lot of laws and rules that you got to be very careful in your private life. But they're trying to grow the game. They're trying to make a go at it. It hasn't caught on yet, but I mean, I give them a lot of
Yeah.
credit. They're trying to expand the game, and hopefully
Yeah.
maybe 5 to 10 years they're going to
Yeah.
have their own league out there.
There's a lot of money over there. Dan, your comments on that?
Well, there's a lot of money behind that game right now. There's a lot of former big leaguers who have backed it monetarily and physically. Barry Larkin, Felix Hernandez, Adrian Beltre. There's some real big names who have made it a point to be big contributors. The problem is they're starting from scratch.
Yep.
The ballpark they built is actually quite nice. It looks good. But, until a player in that nation sees somebody who looks like them on a big league game, it's going to be really hard. I mean,
Right.
Korea didn't take off till Chanho Park played.
Right.
Until Nomo came along, the Japanese game didn't explode. You look at Brazilian players today, Colombian players, there's players from countries all over the world. Until a native gets in a big league uniform on TV, it's really hard for that young man, that young girl to see themselves as a future big leaguer. And that's what we're fighting right now.
Dan, I'm finding in this conversation, and I look at the representation that Oscar and John Boggs do, but an agent really has to be a scout. I'll have Oscar comment on this, but I go back to my metaphor. Uber drivers all over the world have a car and the license, and they fill out an app, and they get approved, and they go to the airport, and they pick up a passenger, and they make money. And the passenger gets off the plane and goes to the app, and the closest one to the airport gets the business. I'll go to Oscar first, but this global representation, somebody from Japan representing somebody from Japan, somebody from Cuba representing somebody from Cuba. Oscar, your thoughts about matchmaking with the way that we're growing as a company with over 30,000 alumni, different languages, different cultures. Your comment, Oscar, on our vision of an agent advisor footprint around the world for recruiting to the college level as well as representation in the majors. Your comment, Oscar.
Yeah, it's very similar to what Dan's saying. Until, just like with a player, until you see the player at the big league level, a young man from that country is not gonna maybe think about being a baseball player. Same way with this. I mean, I've recruited guys that I helped become agents, guys and girls become agents, and they say, "Geez, Oscar, we don't think we can do what you've done." I said, go out in your country, get a player. I have a young man who's the son of one of the general managers of the Winter League team in Mexico, and he just recruited a player, and I'm representing that player today, and now I'm trying to encourage him to go through the agent process, get his license, because this young man that he recruited for my stable is going to be a big league player. And I say, you know what? In about 5 years, this guy's going to be established in the big leagues. You're doing a lot of the work with me. You can become an agent, just like that Uber driver you're referring to. He's in Mexico. He recruited this young man. The young man is with me. But in the long run, I want that young man from Mexico to become an agent so he can represent that player as well.
And let's face it, even in my 150 clients in the NFL, if you get Ralph out of Louisville, you get Brian, the younger brother, out of Clemson, a Hall of Famer, and I call it the Ralph rule. Dan, my question to you, where do you see the emerging markets? Is it in Africa, Middle East? Where is baseball growing that we aren't thinking about? You guys are in the industry every day. You talk to so many people, and we'll be down in Dallas. But tell me where you think what emerging markets are coming into baseball.
China, Lynn. I've thought China is going to be the next market for a long time. I was the first person to work anyone out in the People's Republic of China. There's 5 Major League Baseball complexes there. I'm hearing talk of other complexes being built there. There's such a huge collection of humans there. And I think about what happened when the NBA, had their great player show up, and it changed the whole look of the game. And I think what we're going to have in China is we're going to have somebody come along, and I've scouted a lot there, and I haven't found the guy yet. But every time I was scouting there, all I kept thinking is, if I can find that guy, I have an entire country behind me, and I have licensing, merchandising, media, all of that. But I think the other spot is in Africa. And I think
I do too.
the problem, though, is the African nations are just learning how to play the game. So the curve is such that it's going to be a while before we see the next really great player. We've seen. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think we see a lot of countries that are on the cusp of producing good players, but producing interesting players and big league players are entirely different things. And like when I would go scout in China, I could find guys who could play A ball, but I couldn't find guys who were big league players. I went to Taiwan. I was able to find some great players. And I think those countries are ahead of some of the African and European countries. But I think in the next 20 years, we're going to see 40 countries represented in Major League Baseball.
And Dan, it ties into our NIL and the college program. They don't have to be major league players yet, but the development, it goes back to the $1 million arm in India. But I see this developing all over the world, the cross-pollination of talent identification. Let's go to Alex Marks. He has a question. Alex, can you come in with your question?
I can. Thank you, Lynn.
So, introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So Alex Marks, just recent graduate of SMWW's courses. They were all fantastic, and recently certified as a baseball scout. So I'm trying to do my best to spread the word out about what all the great things you guys do and offer.
Thank you very much, Alex.
You're welcome. So my question goes back to the discussion about what Dan was talking about with the expansion of college scholarships. I hate to ask Dan to talk because I know he's feeling under the weather, and this Oscar from the Latin American perspective. But it's interesting how the past couple of years there's been I guess I don't want to call it a wave, but there's been an introduction of a player from Japan, Rintaro Sasaki, who skipped the entire Japanese league and development and training to go to Stanford and accept his scholarship there. And I followed him this summer when he actually played for the independent league Trenton Thunder, and he was phenomenal. He was just in the upper echelon of offensive categories. So my question is, do we probably see more of that coming down the road? Maybe from Japan and other countries where the expansion of college scholarships will allow this?
Well, I think you're on target from my perspective, being an agent, being from the collegiate ecosystem for 100 years. Dan, your quick comment on that, and then we'll go to Oscar.
Alex, that's a great question. Alex is also a SABR member. Alex, what we have here is a really interesting kid because he courted a bunch of college programs, narrowed it down to Vanderbilt and Stanford, selected Stanford, and now he has camera crews from Japan following him everywhere. He's the all-time high school home run champion in Japan. I've seen him play. I like him. Left-handed bat with lots of power. He's got a chance to be a really good player. But what he was doing was circumventing the college angle from Japan and getting into the American game earlier. This way you can get into the American game at 21, 22 instead of 28, 29, 30. And what we frequently have, Alex, is most of the position players who come over from Japan, from Korea, are coming when they're past their prime. They've already been in the peak of their seasons, and because of the 9 years of free agency required in Japan and Korea, these kids come over and, they're on the downswing. So you see people like Akiyama, you see people like Aoki that aren't as good as they would have been if they came in their prime.
Right.
The key for me with Sasaki, and it's something that everybody should know here, it's a really great element. His father is the head coach, the former high school head coach of some guy, Shohei Ohtani and Yusei Kikuchi in Northeast Japan. So, he coached them both right out of Sendai, the area, the prefecture. And as a result, he's got an extraordinary amount of experience with two players from his high school program who are among the better players in the United States.
Right.
So as a result, Alex, his lens was very different, and his father and mother, both accomplished amateur competitors and champions. For them to turn to the American game was a real statement from a collegiate standpoint to shun, the highly historic Japanese Big Six baseball. He was going to go to one of the elite 6 universities in Tokyo and become an even bigger name than he was today. And I think it could be the precursor to a real change in the landscape in Japan.
I agree with you, Dan. Let's go to Oscar with your perspective, particularly in Latin America, because I know when I talk to the basketball people or football, everybody thinks there's a seismic shift. It has impact on major juniors in hockey. It has impact on Euro basketball. The idea that students can monetize and take their wares to the States to get an education while they're getting ready for the pros. Your comment, Oscar.
Yeah, before we go into the Latin America side, I'd take the the other side, what Alex is talking about. When we looked at a pitcher by the name of Carter Stewart that didn't take, he was a highly draft pick of the Atlanta Braves, and Scott Boras couldn't come to terms with him. And then he took him to Japan, to the highest paying team in Japan, SoftBank Hawks. And the young man started off slowly, but now he's turning himself into a really good pitcher. Now he's monetized himself to such an extent. He's making a lot of money in Japan. And he's going to come back as an unbelievable free agent when he's probably about 24, 25 years old. And from the Latin American side, what I'm looking at is now there are new options. The player doesn't have to just think at 16, I've got to sign as undrafted free agent. You're making a lot of money, not undrafted free agent, but in those international pools, you're making a lot of money. That's great. But all of a sudden, the player has a chance to. I've got a young player that's going to high school right now in an Atlanta high school, and he's a top-rated shortstop in the state of Georgia, and he's coming from Panama. And he said, he said to me and his dad, and he said to me, you know what, this whole thing coming to high school, we're getting a little bit of money, it's working out well, and he might go high in the draft. Well, if he would have been sitting in Panama when he was sitting there at 16, nobody was taking a look at him. Now he's become a better player by coming to the United States. So it's opened up all kind of horizons for players from all over the world.
Right. And Oscar, the cross-pollination, again, I want to encourage you, we're not going to stay long, but if you have a question, either type it in or raise your hand. We'd like to get a few more questions in, but I got to be honest with you, Oscar, I call it the 3.0 revolution, but there's American kids that aren't ready for the elite, the professional teams here that go over to Japan or they go to Korea. There's a cross-pollination going on of talent discovery, and that's why I go back to analytics and the digital video side of assessing talent, and it's a fascinating time. I mean, we have a player of the Dallas Cowboys. He had the fastest run of the year in the NFL, Cavante Turpin. He was 26 years old in Poland playing. He had some issues coming out of school, but nobody goes from Poland to the NFL. But I think it's just a new frontier. It doesn't matter where you live, what kind of language you have. Baby athletes are born every day. I just think it's an exciting time for representation, exciting time for scouting, analytics. It never ends here. Dan, let's go back with any comments. I don't want to keep pestering you because we won't stay. But if anybody else has a question, we'll take them, and I'll have Ike come in if anything else he wants to cover. But Dan, do you have any closing comments on the globalization of baseball and what you do in the class for those that take a course?
Well, I think, Lynn, I've been very lucky during my time in the game. I've literally seen it firsthand. I scouted in places like Brazil and, Africa and Germany and Taiwan and China, Korea, Australia, Japan, places that I never thought I would go when I began my career. And I always try to maintain to our students that you've got to be prepared for change to really excel in the game. When Oscar and I started in the game, we never would have envisioned 30 teams. We never would have envisioned the influx of players from Asia. We never would have thought about a young man in Cameroon who's a graduate of our class starting the national program there.
Right.
It's an extraordinary global shift, and it's not just talk. So I think for everyone, there's a niche out there if you seek it. You just have to find it. There's more opportunities in the game than ever before, even if it's just an interpreter, if it's somebody at the youth level, if it's somebody on the Olympic or national team level, as a scout, as an administrator. What you really need to do is take your blinders off, because the old school people in the game have been pushed aside. And today's game is all about getting the best players from wherever they are. I said that in my interview with the Dodgers 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the owner of the Dodgers said, well, like where would you go? And I said, we have to get deeper into Latin America. We have to get into Panama. We have to get into Europe. We've got to get into Taiwan, Korea, and Japan, because we're the Dodgers, and the Dodgers have always been the pioneer.
Very much out there. Right. Let me go to Bob Lemoyne. He has a question. Great stuff, Dan. And you're right about the Dodgers vision way back. And of course, everybody's looking for the next great one. Let's go to Bob Lemoyne with your introduction and question for Dan and Oscar. Thanks for coming in, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Hello from New Hampshire. I took Dan and Hank's class this fall, and I'm planning on keeping going, getting some more classes in, and seeing where this rabbit trail goes. And it's very exciting. Quick question was, when you mentioned going globally, you mentioned Europe. Europe's a pretty big place, and I'm curious what the opinions are of like the top 3 or 4 countries of Europe that are the most emerging as far as the game goes, or where we are with that.
And we know they were in London again last year. And that's a good question. Dan, do you have any insight on that? And I'll go to Oscar.
Well, Major League Baseball tried to put a game on in Paris this year. They were not able to find a sponsor, so they had to back off. But it was in the labor agreement, Bob. And also, Bob, good to see you again. I think what we have is we have 3 or 4 countries that are really starting to move well. I think, first of all, Spain, Italy, Germany are really good. And part of the German surge is they have a great scout with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who is comfortable with their program and does a great job there. But I also think there's places like Ireland, where Ireland is really starting to take on baseball. In fact, one of our participants tonight, Bobby Score, is one of the board members of the Irish American Baseball Society. So what we have is growth in the EU that is really stunning. But again, Bob, here's the problem. Until they see somebody that looks like them and is from their world, they just can't figure it out. I was in Japan once, 8 o'clock in the morning, when Hideo Nomo was pitching for my Dodger team against the Diamondbacks, and Shibuya Square, which is just an extraordinary place, the most heavily populated intersection in the world, was literally at a standstill when Nomo was trying to get the win in the 9th inning. And it's something I'll never forget, because the entire country was on hold in its busiest intersection when their native son was trying to pitch the Dodgers into the playoffs.
Right.
And it blew me away. And it's a photo that I'll never forget, an image that I'll never forget, because it's one of their own. So I think, Bob, what we have here is as teams from Europe get into the World Baseball Classic, compete at a high level, and get in to the
Right.
finals or semifinals or quarterfinals,
Yeah.
what we'll have is we'll have a surge in people playing the game in those countries.
Totally agree, Dan. Connor has a question for Oscar. What's your thoughts on women's baseball league coming? And I'll get Dan's after yours. Oscar, your comments.
Well, it's interesting because I've been approached by people who've been trying to start women's baseball leagues,
Yeah.
and women's softball at the collegiate level is a very popular sport. I mean, right here
Very.
in
Oklahoma,
Arizona where I live, and I mean,
Yeah.
just here in Arizona, I mean, Oklahoma's a
It's
big league, but
huge.
Arizona, it's huge here as well. And I think like Dan says, when the media, when the TV people and the sponsors are out there, I think it might be a go. I just don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime. I mean, I'm closing on my 70s, and I'm hoping it's something that would take off because it would open up a lot of other avenues of employment for people. But before we go on to that subject, the whole thing with Europe, what going back to Dan's comment, when I think of about the Netherlands and all the players they have from Curacao and Aruba and all those areas, the
Right.
reason those guys are so well represented in Major League Baseball, so going back to Dan's point, they're seeing their own people in Major League uniforms.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you talk about Japan, and you talk about Otani. Well, I go back to the 80s when I'm sitting in the middle of Mexico City and Fernando Valenzuela was may he rest in peace. I
Right.
got to know Fernando really well. And he's pitching the Fernando Mania back then. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The whole country was at a standstill watching
Right.
Fernando throw. So you bring so many people together,
Yeah.
whether it's women baseball, whether it's the men's side, whether it's international. Baseball brings us all together. It's just a matter of being able to put it all together, like Dan said.
Good stuff. It's no different than the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Let's go to Jim Allen with his question. Jim, come on in.
Hey, great to see all you guys, Oscar, always. And my
Likewise.
question is for Oscar, because we were talking about Carter Stewart, who's just a wonderful guy. I mean, I love him. And the whole bit about Scott Boras bringing him over is a bit of a lark, actually, because Scott Boras wanted him to stay in the States because it suited Scott Boras's agenda to
Right.
upset this, to overturn the apple cart for the players. I
Right.
like Scott's, that part of Scott's agenda that he wants to make MLB better, but he has no hesitation using his players and using his clients to suit his agenda. So when Carter Stewart's dad went to him and said, I want to play in Japan because he had a connection there, he said, no, you don't want to play in Japan.
Yeah.
Right.
Until Carter Stewart's dad went to him and said, well, CAA will sign a deal with the Hawks if you don't want to. And Scott said, I'm in.
Yeah. I agree with you on
Okay,
that.
that's a long story. I'm going to skip the rest of the Scott Boras. But my question, sorry,
Yeah,
Oscar,
go ahead.
is this. Now, you mentioned your guy from Panama and in Atlanta high school. Do you have these guys who you say, Japan might be, if you're a top draft choice in MLB,
right?
Are you reaching out to teams in Japan? Now I know a friend of mine's son tried out with a team in Japan, and only because it happened to be one of the worst teams in Japan that they basically took a mid-round MLB draft choice and said, well, we don't want to pay you because you're not a professional. They were looking for an intern, like they do at the winter meetings.
Yeah.
So is that an option for you?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I have a couple of friends that scout for Japanese teams, and they're all over Mexico, they're all over Panama, they're in the Dominican Republic, and they keep telling me, Oscar, you got a young man that's in high school that really wants to take a shot at it. We'd be very open-minded to it. It's very similar to what they're doing in Dominican Republic, where they go in and they beat the Americans for a 16-year-old kid. And go way back, think about Alfonso Soriano. He went to Japan and he made himself there, and then he came back. So yes, very, very, very open-minded to that because of the fact that it opens up frontiers for people. I mean, and when you go back, I don't want to harp on my good friend here, Scott Boras, or anything, but I wake up this morning to the news that Cal Raleigh all of a sudden said he fired Scott Boras this morning or last night because I think he wants to stay in Seattle and Scott wants to take him out on the free agent. So there are a lot of things going on, and it doesn't always fit Scott's agenda or Oscar's agenda. You've got to listen to what Scott wants to do when it comes.
Great insight, Oscar. I can't wait to Dallas, and being an agent, I listen to my client. They should be able to at the end get them the best price, but they need to play where they want to play. It's not about you and me. Let's go
Hey,
to Justin Taft.
Lynn, can I just chime in for a
Yeah,
moment?
go ahead, Dan. We'll go to Justin after that.
Jim Allen is one of the most accomplished media people in Japan. He follows Japanese baseball closely. He's one of the most respected and honored people in the game. I consider him a good friend. And I think it's great that we have the perspective of NPB here on the call. I mean, and Jim, plus, is a graduate of our SMWW school.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, I think, caught me quite a bit being on the field when I probably shouldn't have been in Japan. But being a friend, he never reported me. He just would say things like, "Do you even have a credential?" And I remember once we laughed and I said, "No, if I had a credential, do you really think they would give me a credential?" And Jim goes, "Oh my God, I can't. So you're just out here." And I said, "Absolutely."
I didn't know, it used to be 30 years ago, it was okay. And then about, MLB changed the rules because it used to be, uh, ironically, MLB scouts had access to Japanese amateurs. They could walk up and, well, okay, they still do.
No.
We don't talk about that, but
No.
they still do. But the NPB scouts are banned from talking to amateurs. They can't even talk to the coach because 50 years ago they were they were paying the players to jump to pro ball in the middle of the season, and the amateurs got rightfully ticked off about that. Anyway, enough history. But yeah, I didn't report you. I didn't report you, A, because you're my friend, and B, I didn't know you were breaking the rules that day.
But wait,
Jim,
wait a minute, Jim. We know Dan's a good-looking guy. We can't run him off the field.
Right. Okay. I'm still in charge of this. Jim, thanks for being a friend of the family. I look forward to meeting you in the future. Let's go. We got one more question. Justin Taft wants to ask a question. You guys have been great today. I never get tired of baseball. I can't wait till spring training, see Oscar again, but I can't wait to Dallas for the Major League Baseball winter meetings. But let's go to Justin with your introduction and question or comment as we close down this beautiful chat.
Hi, my name is Justin Taft. Originally from Seoul, South Korea. I took the baseball analytics course and the general management and scouting course back in 2021 as a high schooler. Took that, decided to move to America to pursue a career in baseball operations and MLB. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Evans, for allowing me, putting that inspiration in me to move over and pursue this career. So currently, I'm a third year in university. I've worked in the NCAA for an NCAA team as a data analyst and the NECBL, and I'm currently in the process of applying to summer positions targeted at upperclassmen in college for major league teams. So I just wanted to see if there's any advice you could give me on either how to stand out, any do's or do nots within that process, because I'm assuming all these positions are very competitive.
Well, I'm going to say something before I go to Dan and then Oscar. And thank you so much for your nice comments. Those information interviews, I had somebody do 30 of them, became an associate scout for the California Angels. He's passed away, but it's such a great story in his eulogy. But my point is, I'm so proud of you having the courage to invest in this company, but also name drop us. We also have resume service. Some people do 30 and still do information interviews. I have a feeling with Dan and Oscar, you're going to get the right advice here, but I just admire you for the courage and your love for the game. Dan, your comments of mentoring?
Hey, Justin, I love your country. I love Itaewon. I absolutely love Seoul. I love Seoul. Justin, I have a couple of bits of advice, and we talk about this a lot in our class. I think you have to figure out what your niche is to get you in, to get noticed, and then go show somebody you can do it. So I would say the Cape Cod League, I would say the Northwoods League, spend a summer and be kind of a jack of all trades for the summer, working in a college program. At the same time, I think the college route is a better route into the big league game today, just because of the technology being used, because of the recruiting and the scouting that's being done, with the scholarships being added now. I think it's a great avenue into the game. And Justin, I mean, I know you must be bilingual, right? And with all of the influx of Korean players, the KBO game is only 30 years old, but the KBO game is flourishing now. All-time attendance high. There's a couple big players coming over. Justin, if I were you, I'd think about contacting some of the teams that are active over there and see if you can help them not just be more aware, but be a liaison with them, showing people around, showing their scouts around, maybe getting a job in Major League Baseball as a liaison with one of the MLB Asia components. There's all sorts of opportunities right now.
Yeah. And just before I go to Oscar, I just want you to know I tell a lot of our students when they go through this and they're looking for an employer with your background and your bilingual and your relationships, the relationship drives the business. I could forget Scott Boras. Nobody knows the country better than you. So keep that in mind as you navigate. There's money to be made. Your final comments, Oscar, for him.
Well, I think what Dan's telling, a lot of good advice there. The other thing, Justin, you can do is with the ball clubs back in your home country. I'm pretty sure that they could look at you and say, you become a, you come over to America, you learn the system over here. You could help them bring the players over, and before you know it, I'm not trying to make you an agent because I'm a little bit biased here. But before you know it, you might be bringing the player over, and the player might turn to you and say, "Hey, I want you to represent me." So there's a lot of different ways of looking at the college game, like Dan is saying, working for a major league team, but also going to Korea and see if you can return to your country and open up an avenue from that end. Because those players that are coming from there, when I first ventured into Mexico, the reason I was successful is because I spent close to 2 years living with the players that I ended up representing here in the United States. They got to know me and they trusted me. Before you know it, they said, "Oscar, we don't want an agent. We want you to do it." And that's when my agent business took off. That's another way of looking at this whole thing.
You know, Oscar, it's interesting as we close out, we created this toolbox. If you didn't play the game at that level and your dad doesn't own a team, I really think the SNWW family and mentors, we give you the toolbox, the information interviews, the resume service, and I do a weekly chat every Sunday, Oscar, for all sports all over the world. But I appreciate who we are. I can't wait again to see you in Dallas. Dan, I want to wish you a good health along with Ike. Nick and I are healthy for tonight, and Oscar, you sound pretty healthy, if I may. But you guys are a beautiful family, and I think that everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. If you've never been involved with SMWW, the application's free of charge. We'll call you back and click you more information. If you ever have any questions, if you're a former student or are a student, the Sunday chats, you're always available. There's still some seats left in Dallas. We'd love to see you there, and I think we'll be doing more doc talks, and we'll come back with multiple languages. We had some technical difficulties. Zoom and Microsoft Team are all getting into this business. It's called AI, and it's having an impact on the game of baseball, as you can see with all the analytics, but it's also having a delivery and having multiple languages in here, and it's going to be cool down the road. But Oscar, thanks for your patience today, helping us get started. Dan, thanks for risking your life to come in here. Thanksgiving's around the corner. I hope you have a great one. Nick, you're our AI coordinator. This is just the beginning of a new one. Let's enjoy Thanksgiving. Baseball's around the corner. And I'll leave you with this, everybody. Go global or go home. We'll see you soon, probably next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn.